all. In today's session, we are going to learn all about the scope of manageable economics. So let's begin with the introduction, that is the definition of manageable economics. Manageable economics is that stream of management study which mainly focused on how to resolve the business issues and make up a meaningful or impactful decisions when a particular business organization or enterprises apply the theories and the principles of the microeconomics and macroeconomics. Such particular concept is very simple in a very organized way. The meaning has been defined that it refers a specialized stream that mainly deals with the organizational internal issues, which while applying the various economic tools, the economic tools which will be adopted based on or considering all the business assumption, forecastings, and investment. And such single concept involves all. It could relate to the assumptions, forecasting, and investments as well. Such concept is also covers the various tools of economic models. It could be a demand analysis, supply analysis, forecasting models, cost management, pricing, and strategic planning to optimize the resources and of course sustain the growth in the business organization or enterprises. After all, such concept which also applies across the various industries like manufacturing, technology, service sector, automobiles, which always helps the businesses to adapt the whatever the major changes exist in the market and how to cope up with the data driven decisions when there is a forecasting changes is to be existed. These are the examples, two main examples of the manageable economics. The marketing team of Zara, which is one of the brand in clothing, who wants to launch their new product. So such concept is always being used to analyze and forecast about the demand for such new product, which always based on the various factors like price elasticity of demand, consumer taste and preferences, what would be the marketing trends available. So the managers can also use the demand analysis tool, which they can use to set up that optimal pricing strategies and allocate the resources effectively. There is another example to be considered, that is a Ford automobile, which always considering the different production methods for a particular product or for a newly product. Each method has different cost implication and such manageable economics, which always helps to analyze the various types of cost which associated, you can say, with each production method, that how it will allow or which allow the managers to make to prepare or make an impactful decisions about the cost effective production strategies, or focus on preparing the, you can see, the strategies which are actually relate to the cost effective policy. So these are the two main examples that how the manageable economics, which always helps to forecast the demand, to forecast the consumer taste according to the scenario or the real cases of the particular organization. So whenever any organization faces any launch of a new product or different production, so definitely cost, demand, preferences, which always exist to find out, to analyze, and accordingly the tools or the theories of the manageable economics will be applied to resolve, you can say, or to resolve such if any issues, or to take an assessment for all of the factors which consider and particular a product could be launched effectively, or a different methods could be used effectively while assessing the cost implication which is associated with the production methods. Next, we can talk about the nature of the marriageable economics. So, of course, it is in marriageable economics is an art and science, and of course, it follows the theories of the macroeconomics. It also uses the various theories of the macroeconomics and microeconomics. It can be termed as a multidisciplinary discipline. It could be a prescriptive and it could be a normative discipline. It is a very management oriented because, after all, manageable economics is part of the management studies which always believe to resolve the issues of the business problem that a particular organization are actually faced to optimize the resources and achieve the goals. And the next one is the pragmatic, you can say the concept which always deals in a marriageable economics. So let's have a small overview about all these you can say aspects of marriageable economics. So let's begin with the arts and science. So management theories which always exist in the marriageable economics, which always needs a critical or the logical thinking or an analytical thinking, which always helps the business or decision businesses managers or the decision makers to take up a decision or a meaningful decision and solve the problems. There are many economists who always find a source of research, and whenever we talk about the marriageable economics termed as arts and science, so many economists which always do a plenty of research, and once they do a research, then accordingly they can apply the different economic concepts like theory of unemployment, theory of poverty, theory of demand, theory of supply, theory of market equilibrium, theory of cost, theory of production concepts. So these are all economic concepts and techniques. We can talk about the elasticities of income, elasticities of substitution. There are various pricing theories and methods which are always helps to resolve the business problem. And that's why it called as art and science, because after all, any of the theories were and any of the critical and logical thinking, analytical skills will always be used to resolve any of the business problems. Next one is microeconomics, marriageable economics, which always deals with the problems which not only relate to the single organizations, but also plenty of organization or as an economy or as an economy as a whole. It can be manageable economics is also the you can see one of the major you can see concept where the theories of microeconomics which always been existed to solve to resolve the business issues whenever they are exist in an organization. So if we talk about the macroeconomics theories, we talk about the theories of utility, we talk about the theories of market equilibrium, cost, production function, revenue theory of revenues. So that will always a part of the microeconomics where the in the real scenario organization uses that theories where the analytical skills where thinking, logic, critical thinking will also be used to resolve any of the issues that whenever it exists. Next one is uses of microeconomics. It is very important to use the macroeconomics. After all, we are talking about the economy as a whole, which always plays a very integral part, or you can say, of the economy, where the managers which always involved to evaluate the various macroeconomic factors like total market dynamics and economic changes, the government policies, the government issues that they are actually facing in the real scenario, and what would be their effect or influence on the company. That also being started using the macroeconomics. Next one is multidisciplinary. Manageable economics uses many tools and principles of different discipline. It could be, and after all, it relates to many disciplines as well, and that's why it's termed as a multidisciplinary. In economics, we can also use the concepts of statistics. We can also use the concept of mathematics, operation research, human resources, marketing. We can talk about the economic human resources, economic marketing. You can say the finance and accounting. It's always relate to the economics because after all, these disciplines are also being used in the manageable economics whenever any economic and the business issues or concerns has to be put on. Next one is prescriptive or normative discipline. When any of the organization are always need to take up any corrective action or to introduce any corrective actions, the manageable economics is always being focused to achieve the organizational goals and resolve any of the specific issues or problems whenever is available or whenever the organization face such issues and concern. And definitely the manageable economics is one of the tool which always being used by the managers to resolve such issues in a specific aspects. Next one is the management oriented. It always plays a very significant device or a tool or an instrument for the managers to deal that how they will resolve the business related problems and the uncertainties. So definitely uh, the manageable economics which always allow to set up the principles or policies, the focused area which need to be put on the you can see the, and accordingly they can make up or take impactful decisions or successful decisions to deal with the business related problems. So if any of the organization is facing an issue of the cost implication, so definitely manageable economics tools or their economic tools or statistical tools you can easily can apply to resolve such business related problems or related to the cost implications or any related to the demand analysis, etc. Next, we can, and the last nature of the manageable economic is pragmatic. The solution is it's all related to the day-to-day business challenges. So because whatever the business challenges is realistic and rational, and it is very important for the organization to get a solution of these business challenges or today business challenges which are very essential, which are very realistic and essential to resolve. So there are different individuals take their different views towards a different perspective or considering a different perspective of the manageable economics. But on the other hand, there are many you can say people or individuals who are mainly to concentrate more on the customer service and how to they can optimize the resources which are mainly productive, efficient, that considers a pragmatic where the business challenges is mainly being focused on how it could be resolved and whatever the principles is to be used and the considered by different individuals whatever their expect perspective towards the views, then definitely they can accordingly face the business challenges where the others are always concentrate on the different customer services and how they will give their priorities on the efficient production. Now we can come up to the next section that is the scope of manageable economics. So of course, microeconomics and the macroeconomics, the both theories of economics have an equal effect on the organization or company. So the first one is microeconomics applied to operational matters. And after all, the scope of microeconomics is numerous. So the various theories or the principle of microeconomics which always being used to resolve the internal problems of the organization rather than external problems in a particular business operational activities. So there are the various theories which is being used to resolve any of the internal problems of the organization. And the first one is demand theory. It is very important to understand that demand theory is not all about to assess the demand for the product. It is equally important that such theories always focus that how to assess the consumer behavior towards any of the newly or existing product or services. And of course it also denote then what would be the customer desires and expectation, their taste, their preferences, what would be the conditions so that they can improvise their manufacturing process, their production process, or they can try to change up the production techniques which has been used for the newly product or for the existing product to improve. So that's why demand theory is also being used to resolve any of the internal issues and problems of the organization. Next one is decisions of production and production theory. And after all, when we talk about the production, we are not talking about the simple only the word production. It involves the various terms and its parameters that need to be considered. That could be the what would be the volume, what would be the process of you can say capital and labor, how much the cost is associated with that production process, with that particular units of production, with the units of capital, with the labor. So which is it is of course it is related to the you can say internal aspects, and accordingly the decisions has to be taken by the managers, which is based on the production, and the production theory is or the production analysis is to be done so that they can meet up the customer needs and requirements. And accordingly such theories is always being focused on the production units, their process, their capital, their cost, their labor, and that is all about the production theory. So if any of the theory which always focused on the production process, their methods, their techniques, their volume or units, their capital, labor, and cost, so definitely considered or come under the production theory. Next one is the market structure pricing theory and analysis. So when we talk about the market structure, so definitely such theories always focus on assessing the product pricing, which always faces the competition, any of the marketing trend changes or the market dynamics, production cost, how they will optimize or increase the sales volume. Next one is exam and management of profit, as the firm and companies were always focused on profit maximization. And it is very important to understand that how the company operate for assets and which always focus to maximize the profit. And profit is totally depends on the demand. That would be the market demand, not individual demand. Here we are talking about the macroeconomics. So here we are always talk about the total market demand, the total input cost, the level of competition that we always focus. But as it is a case of the microeconomics, so we can talk about the market demand, we can talk about the you can say individual input cost or the individual level of competition that a particular one company faces in the particular market scenario. Next one is the decisions on capital and investment theory. So capital, as when we talk about the capital investment, so capital is the most powerful instrument of any of the organization in business, and this concept is always focused that how such capital will be distributed among the company resources, and how the investment is to be taking place in the productive manner or in productive programs, and how to basically to increase the operational performance, or the performances of their operational activities is to be increased. The next one is macroeconomics. Here we can always apply to the business environment. So when we talk about the macroeconomics, here we can talk about the various dimensions of the environment. That means we can talk about the business climate or the business environment, which has been influenced by the various dimensions of business environment. So here, so the macroeconomics is always applied to the business environment. So any organization, and after all, it influenced by the environment in which it operates, whether it could be the economic environment, whether it could be the social environment, whether it could be the political, technological, and so on. So the business climate can be defined in the following types of or dimensions of environment. The first one is economic environment. So a country economic condition, that is a gross domestic product, the government policies, which automatically the indirect influence on the company and its operations. Next one is the social environment. Here we can talk about the employment conditions, the trade unions, the consumers' cooperative efforts and teamwork, which automatically influence the performance of the operational activities of the organization. Next one is the political environment. Here we can talk about the country political system, whether it's an authoritarian or democratic, or the political stability and attitude towards the private sector will definitely influence the you can see organizational growth or its organizational growth and development. So the next one is the concepts of the manageable economics. So the first one is liberal marginalization, normative marginalization, radical marginalization, and the last one is manageable economic values. So let's have an overview of these four main terms. So the first one is the liberal marginalization. So when we talk about the regular marginalization, so market is a very democratic, you can say, place where the people can make their choices, own choices and decisions, and the organization and we can say its managers have to function, have to work upon according to the customers' demands and the market trends, and automatically when the particular liberty the business managers or the organization have it, and accordingly they could work, and it definitely leads to the business failure. So it is very important to research on the market trends, research on the feedback of the customers, and how what about the customers choices and decisions, how it would be their behavior about it towards a particular product, and accordingly the managers or the organization have to work on. If they couldn't do, then definitely it leads to a business failures, and that's called a liberal managerialization. Next one is normative management. So normative management is all about the business is always experienced the real life scenarios and the practices. So automatically, when we talk about the manageable economics normative view, it always talk about the administrative decisions which always being based on the real life experiences and the practices. And of course, when administrative decision has to be taken, so definitely managers have to study their demand, their forecasting or forecasting trends, cost control, product design, promotion, recruitment of the manpower, etc. So these are called the administrative activities which are totally based on the real life experiences and practices. And that's called the normative management view on a manageable economics. Next one is radical management. When we talk about the radical management, the managers must have a creative approach to the business concern. So if any of the business related problems or any of the business situation or circumstances, so definitely managers have to apply a creative, you can say, approach to resolve any of the current issue or situation or circumstances. So definitely the managers have to concentrate more on the needs and the how they will satisfy the customers rather than they to focus on the maximization of profits or income. So as the organization is always focused on the maximization of profits, so radical management view of the manageable economics is always focused on the decisions that how they can improve the current situation and circumstances, and it could be done while understanding more on the needs and the satisfaction of the customers. Next one is manageable economic values. It is always being understood by the managers to follow up the principles of economics in reference to the macroeconomics and the excellent macroeconomics. It's N. Grobrio or McHugh has given the 10 principles which always explain the significance of the manageable economics to be used in their business operation or to improve the operational activities of the business. So, and that's called the manageable economic values, that how the ethical values has to be used to improve or to improve or to expand the business operations. Next one is manageable economics and other disciplines. So as I already told that manageable economics is termed as multidisciplinary, but how this concept is related to a different discipline in terms of finance, accounting, operational research, human resources, strategic management, that to be studied under this particular section. So the first one is the manageable economics and finance. So when we talk about the manageable economics, which always relate to the finance, because it always try to optimize the financial decision making, that how the decisions is to be taken financially, and it always focused, and while taking up the financial decisions, it is the manageable economics focused on analyzing the economic factors, and accordingly they can make impactful choices. And finance, which always provides the tools and the frameworks to assess the financial ability of the organization about the risk and returns on the investments. So when economic factors is to be considered like demand, cost, production, so definitely the financial factor which always comes around, and that finance, the that means this disciplined finance, which provides the tools and framework that how the business managers could access the financial availability and the risk and return on their investments of the projects. Next one is manageable economics and accounting. So the accounting provides the foundation for the manageable economics, so that by supplying the essential financial information, and the financial information is related to the financial statement, cost records. So you can see, and cost records is related to the each cost, whether it could be service cost, process cost, input cost, direct cost, indirect, and accordingly they can do the economic analysis. So the manageable economics utilize the accounting records so that they can evaluate the cost of production, cost of any product, and accordingly they can measure the performances of, you can say, of that product in the market, and then accordingly they can take up an impactful or the meaningful decisions on it. Next one is manageable economics in marketing. So the manageable economics and marketing are always closely related to each other, and they work on a hand to hand. So these disciplines, both disciplines, is always try to understand the consumer behavior, their preferences, their conditions, and try to maximize the market opportunities. So automatically, when we talk about the manageable economics, provide the insight about the economic factors that influence the consumer demand, pricing strategies, and the how market trends. So automatically, marketing, which always helps to understand it, on what basis the consumer changes their demand, their decisions, and what strategies, and how the market is to be divided into various segments, so that it could again, so that the marketing strategies could be, you can say, formulated, and accordingly the pricing strategies and how they will actually allocate the resources efficiently to achieve the competitive advantage in the particular market scenarios. Next one is manageable economics and the operational management. We can talk about the operational research. So operational management or operations management is always focused on the efficient production and delivery of goods and services. And such concept is definitely complements the operations management by providing the analytical tools so that they can optimize the production process. They can trade off, they can evaluate the trade off among the cost and the production, how they will manage the resources effectively. So, whatever the data has to be provided, it could be provided, how the evaluation has to be done, it could be used with the help of the production management only. So by combining all the principles of both the specialization and field, managers uses the data driving decisions, and accordingly they can take the impactful decision, improve the operational efficiency, and the decisions that could be related to the production level, the capacity planning, the supply chain management, inventory control, and ultimately all these decisions, which always helps to improve or to increase the operational efficiency. And the last one is manageable economics and strategy. Here we are always talk about the strategic options and what would be the potential impact of that strategies on the organization. So manageable economics and strategic management are the interconnected discipline, and it always helps to strategize the options or alternatives which are available in both perspectives. So the manageable economics provide the analytical framework that how they can access the economic availability of the strategic options and how they can evaluate the potential impact on the organization. So any of the strategies, whether it could be the economic strategies, market strategies, advertising strategies, options or alternative has been formulated, and the main purpose is to evaluate that strategies, you can say, on the organization. So strategic management is always helps the manageable economic analysis to formulate and to implement the long-term plans that always helps to achieve the organizational goals. So strategic management is always helps to prepare the strategies for the organizations so that they can achieve the organizational goals on time. Now we can come up to the next concept that is called the economic analysis. So economic analysis is almost the evaluation of cost and the benefits of all those economic investments, plans or policies so that the goal of the organization could be achieved, and it also improves the resource allocation and take up an impactful decision. It also involves that how the effects of any of the situation or the complexity or the circumstances on an economy. Economic analysis study that effects like measuring changes in business revenue, sales margin, profits, wages analysis, or any of the job analysis in a particular organization. When these analysis, these assessment has to be done, how to measure them all, then definitely economic analysis tool will be applied to study or to measure or to evaluate all, or you can say changes. So the economic analysis can be used in a various perspective when we talk about the project evaluation, any of the policy making, understanding the marketing trends. Definitely, economic analysis will be used. Types of economic analysis. The macroeconomic will always focus on the individual economic scenarios or decisions like individual consumer choices and the business decisions. Macroeconomics, it always evaluate or investigate the overall economy as a whole or its performance like inflation, poverty, unemployment, economic growth and development. Deductive method means it starts from general principles and apply that general principles to the specific situation. Inductive method, it applies to observe the specific patterns and then generalize their conclusions. So that is called the inductive method. So just observe anything, any event, and just generalize your inferences and conclusion. It becomes inductive method. Next one is partial and journal equilibrium analysis. So when any of the organization want to achieve a stable equilibrium, so the economic problem must be analyzed. So and other things will remain the same like income, you can say price, etc. So this is called the partial equilibrium analysis. So when, in order to attain the stable equilibrium, an economic problem must be analyzed at the one time and assuming other things will remain the same, that's called the partial equilibrium. Journal equilibrium, there is an assumption that other things will remain the same or equal, but the interaction among the variables, whether price and demand, supply and demand, may be used, and that's called journal equilibrium analysis. The next concept is comparative, static and dynamic analysis. So in reference, it always used in reference to the time dimensions. So first of all, the economic problem may be analyzed, and of course, it shows that there is no change at a point of time. When we talk about no changes at the point of time, the economic problem, that's called the static. And when it allows once for all the change at the point of time, that's called the comparative static. So when at the one point of time it will assess the all the changes at the point of time that's called the comparative study. That means a different point of time, a comparative study has to be done. It becomes the comparative study. When we study that there is no change in any point of time, it's called the static analysis. Dynamic involves the successive changes over a period of time, that's called the dynamic analysis. So there are three analysis: static, comparative, static, and the dynamic analysis. When there is no change in any point of time, it's called static. When we talk about the comparative static, when showing all the changes at a point of time, it's called the comparative static analysis. When it's a successive changes over a period of time, more than the point of time, it becomes the dynamic analysis. So this is how the time dimension has to be studied, and accordingly the economic analysis may be economic problem rather than analysis may be analyzed. Next one is positive and normative analysis. So in positive economic analysis, first of all, the problem is analyzed in the objective terms, which is based on theories and principles. But in normative economic analysis, the problem is analyzed based on the norms, based on the value judgment. So in simple words, positive analysis is what is the problem, and normative analysis what it should be, or what it should be or could be done to resolve that problem. So that is called the positive and the normative analysis. For example, to understand this concept, the CEO in the private Indian enterprises earn 15 times as much as the lowest paid employee is a positive statement. So positive statement, that means a positive analysis, that this is the analysis that the CEO in the private enterprises earn 15 times as much as the lowest paid employee is a positive statement. When we describe how what is should be and how it should be, then it could be a normative analysis that what it should be, what exactly this statement is trying to reveal, and you are explaining in a very you can say conclusive manner. That's become the normative statement that the CEO should be paid 4 to 5 times the lowest paid employee. Examples of the economic analysis: economic impact of a new stadium. So the economic impact analysis could assess what would be the effects of the new stadium on the local economy. It could increase the tourism, business activities, or the employment generation. Next one is the cost benefit analysis of a new highway. So if the cost benefit analysis could compare the cost of building a new highway with its benefits to the public, then how it could be analyzed, or making a comparison basis after like constructing or while constructing a new highway, what would be the potential benefits to the public, that to be studied, and that's become the economic analysis. Cost effectiveness of a new drug. So a cost effectiveness could compare the cost of a new drug to the cost of the existing treatment. And this way it will get to know the effectiveness of each in treating a specific disease. So it is very important. So once you compare the cost of a new drug to the cost of existing treatments, then you will get to know their effectiveness. And that's one of the example of economic analysis. Now we can come up to the role of manageable economics. The first one is demand analysis and forecasting. So it's identify the market opportunities. So once we analyze the consumer behavior and the market trends, so business can easily identify the new market opportunities as well. Next one is demand forecasting. There are various tools. That is one of the main tool is demand forecasting. That demand forecast is always used to help the businesses that what would be the plan for the production, what would be the inventory cost, what marketing strategies is to be applied for. That's a part of the demand forecasting. The next role is cost analysis. What was the role of cost analysis in manageable economics? So the first one is cost control. So it helps the business to identify or control the cost like production cost, labor cost, material cost, overhead cost, etc. Next one is the cost benefit analysis. It also enables the businesses to evaluate the cost and benefits of the various investment decisions, projects, etc. Next is production theory. It optimizes the production. So definitely, manageable economics is always being used to optimize the resources for the efficient production, so to at a minimum cost and maximize output. Next one is economies of scale. It always helps, this concept is always helps to identify the various opportunities so that they can achieve the economies of scale, the more and more production of products and reduce the average cost. Next one is market structure and pricing, the competitive analysis. Such concept is always helps the business to analyze the market structure and identify their competitive advantages towards different types of markets. Next one is pricing strategies. It provides the basic insights into a pricing strategies for and the various tools is to be used for us to analyze the strategies like cost-based pricing, value-based pricing, price discrimination, etc. And the last one is capital budgeting. So when we talk about capital budgeting, so these two roles plays, manageable economics plays a two role in these two parameters. And the first one is investment decisions. So manageable economics is always helps the businesses to evaluate their long-term investment projects like new product development, plant or equipment expansion, etc. Risk analysis is also helps the business that what type of risk, it could be the financial risk or the business risk which can be associated with the investment decision, and accordingly the managers or the business organizations could easily implement or prepare the meaningful choices or impactful decisions on the risks. Now we can talk about the basic characteristics that decision making. So what is the decision making? So decision making is just a fundamental aspect of the manageable economics where the managers analyze the various alternatives, their risk, choose the best alternatives so that they can achieve the organizational objectives. So the first one is race. Through achieving the organizational objectives, so decision making have a various steps to follow up by managers. So the first one is the rational decision making, which is a key characteristic of the manageable economics. It's all about to evaluate the alternatives based on the logical reasoning and analysis. So of course it follows a five main steps: to identify the problem first, generalize generating the alternatives, then evaluate the alternative, then select the best alternative, and then implement and monitor the performances of that alternative towards a business related problem. So these are the explanation of this particular process, that how the managers can prepare a rational decision making. So identify the problem first, then generate alternatives, then evaluate the alternative and select the best alternative, then implement the best alternative, and of course monitor their performance or its performance. Next is the decision making under constraints. So another characteristic of decision making in manageable economics is the presence of constraints. So where the budget constraint, the time constraint, the sources availability, legal and regulatory requirements, market conditions are also the equal parameters that the particular manager has to operate within its boundaries or within its limitation, and that's why it's called a decision making under constraints factors. Decision making in an uncertain environment. So manageable decision making is always takes place in an uncertain environment, and the manager has to deal with the incomplete information, unpredictable market trends and dynamics, uncertain outcomes as well. And accordingly, the tools will be used for its research and development, like risk analysis, scenario planning, sensitivity analysis. These are all the operational research tools, that how they will assess and manage the uncertain environment, the uncertain events. That's called a decision making in an uncertain environment. And the last one is the long term perspective. Decision making in the manageable economics is always a long term perspective. It will take the long time period when the managers considers the possible consequences, and accordingly a decision is to be taken, and considering the various facts and gains over a long period of time. So the weightage of a short period gains against the long-term sustainability, it always considers, or the managers always consider the impact, or what would be the impact on the organization reputation, what would be the competitive position, and how the stakeholders relationship could be built up for a long period of time, and that's called a long-term perspective. And the last is firms. So in the manageable economics, firms plays a very important role, and it could be categorized into various, you can say, form. It could be by ownership, it could be by legal perspective. So when we talk about ownership, it categorizes into four main sector: the private sector, which is owned by private individuals or groups; public sector, which is owned or operated by the government sector; joint sector, it is a mix or a combination of private and public ownership; non-profit, we always talk about, which is not focused on the profit generation, like we can talk about the non-government organization. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening this lecture. I will come up with the more and more important and relevant topics in the upcoming session. So till time, thank you and namaste to all.